Hello, Shiver Seekers. Are you ready to follow us into the unknown? I'm Cynthia.
And I'm Stephanie. You found the dark oak.
Today, I tell you the brutal details of the death of 20-year-old Jaleayah Davis. Was it an accident or was she murdered?
Welcome to the Dark Oak, the mystery podcast with purpose. Each month through our charity, Branch of Hope Foundation, we give a portion of earnings through our Patreon and sponsors to a nonprofit organization related to the first episode of the month. To find out how you can be part of the movement, head to thedarkoak.com, our Instagram account, The Dark Oak Podcast, or stay tuned to the end of the episode and we'll give you all the details. Cynthia, listen. We have something we have to talk about. I have put off watching The Tiger King for...
No.
I have never watched it. I don't know why. Everyone kept... Oh, I do know why. But everyone kept telling me, you need to watch it, you need to watch it, you need to watch it. And somehow, I mean, it came out... I was at a pretty vulnerable place in my life. And I just knew in my heart of hearts it was going to have footage or somehow implied animal abuse, which, I mean, it kind of does, but I'm halfway through and nothing has been overt. So I feel like my fears may have been unfounded, but it is wild. I see why everyone said you have to watch it. And now it's almost like it's like delayed gratification because now I'm getting to watch this thing and I'm like, oh my gosh, everything everyone said about this is true. Who are these people and how do we share a state with them?
Stephanie, I got into the craze, I think it was 2020 when the show came out and kind of blew up. And I got right into that. And I rewatched the entire series at least once annually just for the joy that is Tiger King. I will tell you, I agree with you that there is not a lot of really disturbing stuff in the season 1. Now, I did watch season 2, the follow-up they made of it, and I learned a little more that I did find disturbing in regards to like how the animals were treated. So I came out of my first watch of Tiger King kind of loving Joe. Like, he is all kinds of wild, but yet talk about charismatic. And I know you know what I mean by that. Like, I don't even know that I like him on paper, but yet I like him. He's just fun. He's just fun to watch. I know I would be thoroughly entertained anytime I was in his presence. I came out kind of liking Tiger King, Exotic Joe. And then with the follow-up series or the second season, I didn't like him as much. So he is definitely painted, I think, a certain way.
Okay, so I will go ahead and say you clearly know more than me because I didn't even realize there were 2 seasons. I mean, I just like jumped into it. So I think I'm only at the end of like episode 2. So maybe I'm not even like far enough into it to give like a judgment. But I will say I'm at the end of episode 2. And so far, I think I'm supposed to not like Joe. And I think I'm supposed to like Carol Baskin. But I'm not quite sure it's working out like that at this point. I'm like, I don't know about you, Carol. Where's your husband? What happened with that? Do we ever know? Do we ever know what happened to her husband? Is that something we need to cover?
It's a mystery. I have heard it covered on podcasts before. We don't know what happened to her husband. You know, there's a whole lot of people who think, I mean, it's a fun one. It's a fun one. I'll tell you, if you're only 2 episodes in, you got a lot of joy coming your way. You really do. Oh, I wish I could sit with you on your first watching. What a fun time.
I've just
Has anything really drastic happened yet? Has anybody lost any limbs yet?
Yeah, there was a loss of a limb. There was an arm that got ripped off.
He will never financially recover from this.
Yep, there was that. There was also the triple wedding and the pink shirts.
Oh, the
That
triple
happened.
wedding.
The last thing I watched was Carol is all about the rescue, but there was the VHS that came out of her talking about separating the cubs early so they make good pets. So that came out, and then I'm like, I don't know about you. I don't know. I don't know who I'm supposed to like. And it's also intriguing and captivating, and it's all the things. It's all the things I was told it was. So far have not been disappointed. You have kind of made me think I don't want to watch season 2. Maybe I'll just stop at season 1 and just call it a day. But yeah, I'm in it. I'm a Tiger King fan now.
What a wild ride. There's so much. And here's the thing, because I remember watching it my first time and I'm like, how in the world did they catch all of this? But he recorded his own life.
Yes, so
I know
wild.
you have decades of you just have decades of this character and all of the antics he's up to and all the things that happened to him. Oh, it's so good. I cannot wait to talk to you more about this after you've finished after you've finished the
Oh,
first series.
oh, and then the other guy, what's his name? Al, or the one with all the wives, or the girlfriend wives.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
again, how do we share a state with these people? How?
Uh,
How do we do
uh,
it,
you
Cynthia?
know, it's a gift. It's a gift, Stephanie. I love it. I
I just had to
cannot
share the
wait
good
to discuss
news.
this with you further. And listeners, if you too have yet to watch Tiger King, please, please do.
Here's the deal.
That's all I can say.
I feel like I'm the last person on earth that hasn't seen it. I feel like everybody else probably already has seen it. So I'm just letting you know, like, I finally made it. Like, I'm here
You
now.
finally made it. I'm sure you're not alone. There's probably at least one other person who has not watched it yet, who will now, and you'll get to go on that adventure right along with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
A
We
wild
should
ride.
do what is I mean, again, we're not the greatest at technology, but doesn't like Netflix have something where it's like a party watch, like you watch at the same time, like you pause at the same time and watch at the same time?
Do they?
Oh, that would be fun, Cynthia.
That would be I'm telling you. I'm telling you, I wouldn't even watch the screen. I would just watch you. Just be like, "Uh-huh, uh-huh. Give it 5 minutes. Let's see what you think then." I'm telling you, there is so much to come.
Oh, man. So good. So good. I feel very positive about this so far.
Oh, me too. You've made my day. Which is probably good because the case I'm going to tell you about today, oh man, okay. Let me start off by saying this is the death of a 20-year-old woman. And the big question, I'm not going to even bury the lead. The big question is, did she die as a result of a horrible accident or was she murdered? That's the question. That's the mystery. I will tell you, in order to properly relay this case to you listeners, I will have to go into some pretty extreme detail about the injuries that Jaleayah Davis sustained. We don't go into all the nitty-gritty, gory details if not necessary. In this case, it is necessary, and this one is pretty brutal. To the extent I had to call Stephanie and be like, "Hey, are you okay with me talking about this?" Because we tend to not talk about that really, really brutal stuff. So just know going into this one gets pretty rough in some areas. So listener beware, but it is really important to her case.
However, no one gets eaten by a tiger.
That is one thing I can guarantee you did not happen. No one getting eaten by a tiger. We'll save that for the Carol Baskin episode.
Did a tiger eat her husband? Question mark.
I am not convinced a tiger didn't eat her husband, to be honest. I
Me
think it's a
neither.
possibility. They're all nuts. Let's get into today's case. Jaleayah Rose Davis was born on November 2nd, 1991. Her mother's name is Kimberly, and I couldn't find any readily available information on Jaleayah's father, but Jaleayah did have a younger sister named Tabi. And Tabi was only 18 months younger than Jaleayah, so they were always really close, best friends. And it reminds me of me and my sister. Any woman who has a sister close in age and you guys have a good relationship, that's the best. It's a built-in bestie. It's so cool. So the Davis family was really close, and they lived in Marietta, Ohio, which is just across the Ohio River from West Virginia. And when I say just across the river, I mean it was no big deal for someone from Marietta to just pop over into West Virginia and then come back. You'd be crossing the state line all day, every day. They were literally right there. In her late teen years, Jaleayah attended and then graduated from Marietta High School. And she had a job working at Hollister. Do you remember that store, Stephanie? Hollister?
I wasn't cool enough to shop there, but I definitely recognize the name, yes.
I just liked going into it because it was like really dark and moody and yeah, just brings back memories.
Smelled like teen spirit.
Oh, yes. After high school, Jaleayah had plans to go to school to become a cosmetologist. Our story takes place on Friday, November 19th, 2011, when newly turned 20-year-old Jaleayah and a relatively new friend of hers named Kristen Berchold had plans together. Now, early that evening, Jaleayah went to Kristen's house in West Virginia, and they hung out there for a little while before getting ready to go to a party together. And this party was hosted by one of Kristen's friends, a guy named Brian Saps. Jaleayah had never met Brian, but it sounded like a good time. To paint you a picture of the kind of relationship Jaleayah had with her mother, Kim, right before Jaleayah got to this party, she'd been texting her mom, and Kim told her, quote, "Be good and don't make me worry. Love you," end quote.
The thoughts of every mother everywhere.
Every mother, and I have this exact exchange with my 21-year-old all the time. Like, let me know when you're in. Don't make me worry about you. Let me know when you're in safe. I know exactly what Kim was saying to her daughter that night. Kristen and Jaleayah arrived at Brian's house between 9 and 9:30 p.m. While they were there, they met up with a few more of Kristen's friends. The group hung out for a couple of hours, and the one thing that we definitely do know about this night, we know this to be true, everyone was drinking quite heavily. Later on, partygoers are going to tell police that Jaleayah had anywhere between 11 and 20-something vodka shots over the course of the few hours that she was at Brian's house.
Whoa. Okay, I mean, I know I'm a lightweight, but that seems like a lot for almost anyone, don't you think? I mean, am I just that out of touch?
No. When I heard this, I thought, okay, there's just no way that's even accurate. I don't know how someone would be standing if they drank that much. And Jaleayah was a petite little girl. Now, maybe she drank heavily all the time. Maybe she had a high tolerance, but to me, that seems extreme. So personally, I don't know if we can take those numbers as fact, but I think it is fair to say she was drinking heavily.
Definitely drinking heavily. And how many hours approximately was she there?
About 2.5 hours total. So they got to this party between 9 and 9:30, and they end up leaving the house shortly before midnight. So 2-ish, 3-ish hours of just drinking
Okay.
vodka.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, okay, well, if she was there for like 7 hours, not that much, but in a 2 to 3 hour span, that's a lot of drinks.
It was a lot of drinks. It was so much drinking that at one point the group emptied their first bottle of vodka and felt compelled to run out and grab another bottle of vodka before heading back to Brian's to continue to drink. And this party was actually more of a pregame, if you will. So the group had plans to go like out afterwards. So while they were on this errand to pick up more alcohol, they also picked up another friend of Kristen's named Katie Nelson. And she'd left her car at a Hardee's restaurant, and they picked her up and took her back to Brian's to continue this pregame. After getting,
Okay.
right?
Yikes.
After getting Katie, they went back to Brian's. They all hung out for a little while longer. And then a guy named Freddie drove Jaleayah, Katie, Kristen, and another party goer named Jordan to a club called the Nip and Q. And I tried Googling this place. It has since shut down, but it looks like it was maybe like a dance club with pool tables. Now, this group got to the club right around midnight, and then they kind of split up. So the girls mainly hung out outside together. I'm assuming maybe there was an outside courtyard type area, while the guys in the group went off in other directions. While at the club, Jaleayah ran into a longtime friend of hers named Chris. But Chris was also Katie's ex-boyfriend. And this might be relevant because later on, Kristen and Katie are going to tell the police that Jaleayah was dancing with Chris suggestively, like you do at a club. It sounds like maybe she was getting a little flirty with him, and Katie didn't like it. But Katie also wasn't the type of person who was going to say anything. She wasn't a big conflict person. But just keep this in the back of your mind, because if you come out of this episode believing that Jaleah's death was not the result of an accident, but instead she was murdered, this could potentially be a motive. At around 3 a.m., the group left the club, and the plan was that Freddie was going to drive everyone back to Brian's house, and then they would figure out their next move from there. And all I can think about is it's 3 a.m., and they're still making plans to do more stuff. Like, oh, to be young. Oh, to be young.
I know I could sit here and say, oh, those crazy kids. But I mean, I did that when I was young. I remember doing silly stuff like that too. I mean, I say silly, but at the time it felt very mature and grown up and things that only grown-ups could do. And now that I'm a real grown up doing real adult things, there's no way. I would definitely be in bed. So there you go.
I'd be leaving the party at Brian's a little before midnight and calling it a night and being like, wow, Auntie, what a night out we just had. It's midnight and we're just now getting home, right? Like, I wouldn't be thinking about a club. Now, Jaleayah had originally told Tobby that she was going to stay the night with Kristen, but something must have changed, because at 3:28 a.m., Jaleayah called Tobby, who was also hanging out with a girlfriend, and she asked Tobby to come pick her up at Jaleah's car. Now, Tobby, of course, agreed to do this, and after hanging up, Jaleayah called Tobby back about 5 minutes later, changing the location where Tobby should pick her up to a nearby rest stop. So she was still going to be in her car, but her car was going to be moving locations.
Why did Tabby need to pick her up if she was in her car?
I'm assuming because she was drunk.
Okay, so was the assumption that somebody was going to give Jaleayah a ride to this pickup location so that Jaleayah wasn't driving?
You know how you meet up with friends and like you leave your car
Yeah.
somewhere and then you all drive to
Yeah.
like the next place? So the plan was, Jaleayah says, take me back to my vehicle, and then I'm going to wait at my vehicle for my sister to come pick me up.
Okay.
So she calls Tobby and says, come pick me up. Here's where I'm at. But then 5 minutes later says, no, pick me up here instead.
Okay. Okay, but we don't know if she was planning on driving there or getting a ride there. We just know the pickup location changed.
Right now, that's all we know.
Okay.
Now, Tobby would later say that Jaleayah was really upset during this phone call. She was saying that Kristen was a really bad friend. She was calling Kristen bad names, cursing her out. Tobby also heard Jaleayah telling someone to give her her keys back. And when Tobby asked her what was up, what was going on, Jaleayah told Tobby she would fill her in when she got there to pick her up. Now, according to Kristen, when Jaleayah went to get out of Freddie's car, Jaleayah couldn't find her wristlet with her keys and everything in it.
Like a dark oak wristlet?
I think almost exactly like a dark oak wristlet.
I understand how important that is.
Yes. And this wristlet may have been an ongoing issue throughout the night because, according to Kristen, she tried taking Jaleah's wristlet from her several times throughout the evening because she said she was afraid Jaleayah was going to lose it. But every time Kristen tried to take it, Jaleayah would decline the offer and want to keep it on her. So apparently now when Jaleayah couldn't find the wristlet in the car as she's getting ready to leave, Jaleayah got really upset with Kristen and accused her of taking it. So I think the picture that's being painted here is that Jaleayah is highly intoxicated, right? They don't outright say that, but the fact that Kristen wants to hold her wristlet throughout the night because she's afraid she's going to lose it, maybe even the fact that Jaleayah is so upset, we don't really know why, but so upset at the time that she calls her sister, sounds to me like she's highly intoxicated, and you know how that can affect your behavior.
As we are well aware, alcohol can certainly lead to more exaggerated emotions.
Sure. It may have even just explained why she was, maybe flirting with Chris if that wasn't something that was typical of her.
Sure.
Now, Kristen would later tell police that when the group was leaving Jaleayah at her car, Kristen ensured that Jaleayah would not be driving and instead would be waiting there at her car for Tobby to come pick her up. So the group left Jaleayah, again, with her car, And then Kristen, Freddie, and Katie went to a nearby McDonald's drive-thru before Freddie drove Katie and Kristen back to Kristen's house.
And by saying she was ensuring she wasn't driving, you mean she like verbally said, now you're not going to drive? Like she confirmed with her verbally that she
That's what
wasn't going
she
to
said.
drive?
That's what she
Okay.
said, but then she left her at her car.
She's probably going to drive.
I just think it's the middle of the night. Your friend is in a vulnerable state. Even if she's not going to drive, I'll wait around for my friend's ride to show up. I'm not just going to leave her intoxicated, where even if something went wrong, say someone approached her or something happened, she wouldn't be able to drive because she's so intoxicated. Just not going to leave my friend alone like that. But again, we're talking about young 20 somethings. I don't know.
Was the whole intent of Tabby to meet her at the car so that she could follow Tabby home? Like, I'm wondering what the big push to meet her at the car was. Like, why couldn't she have just picked her up at the McDonald's with the rest of her friends? Because I've heard of that before. Like, hey, I'm a little intoxicated, so I'm just going to follow you. Like, I'm going to follow your taillights or whatever it is, which is never a good option. But I've heard of that happening. So I wonder if somehow Tabby was going to just make sure she drove home safely or was there in case something happened. Because I find it really strange she wanted to meet at her car, unless maybe she had to grab a bag out of it or something.
The impression I got is that no, Tabby was going to pick her up. Jaleayah was not going to drive home.
Okay.
However, the fact that Jaleayah was upset when she was on the phone with Tabby and like calling Kristen names, I feel like that was the catalyst for her just like, leave me here at my car. My sister's going to come get me. Jaleayah didn't want to be around Kristen and the group anymore.
Okay. All right. Maybe Kristen couldn't have hung around. You and I mean, and all we can speak for is us. I don't know that we would have left, even if you were mad at me. I don't think I just would have left you highly intoxicated, like on the side of the road by yourself. But I don't know, when you're 20 and you think you're invincible, nothing bad's ever going to happen to you. So I doubt they even thought that far ahead.
Sure. Sure. All I can say is for me, if I were in this situation, it's one of those things that looking back, I would regret knowing what I know now. At 3:41 a.m., the first of 3 911 calls came in. This caller told dispatch that there was a car broken down on 77 North. The caller said the lights were on and the car was up against the guardrails, but there was no one around. 7 minutes later, at 3:48, a second 911 call was received. And I'm going to read you the transcript of this 911 call so you can really get a picture of this scene. But again, I will go ahead and warn you, this is where it starts to get pretty rough. 911, what is your emergency? Sir, I'm at the 181.6 mile marker northbound on I-77. I cannot make confirmation of this right now. I'm walking back. I think I just seen a human lying dead on the highway, sir. Okay, and you walked away from your vehicle? I'm getting out of my vehicle and I'm walking back where I seen the person. And you think you're at 181? My name is Brian Burden. We drove by and you know how it's dark and you can't see, but I'm just about pretty sure it might have been a person. Gosh, I really don't want to walk back here. You know what I'm saying? I understand what you're saying. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, sir, you don't have to. Stay where you're at and I'll have somebody come up there. I'm getting closer to it. I'm hoping it's a deer, sir. I really am, but I'm pretty sure I saw what I saw. Oh, man. In fact, here's some other people. I don't know if you're getting more phone calls. 2 other guys just stopped here at the bottom of the hill. Oh, man. Okay, sir, do you know your cell phone number? And he confirms the cell phone number. I'm hoping. I can't. I got my boy. And then the 911 dispatcher says something that is indecipherable. And the caller goes on. Yes, sir. I'm pulled alongside the guardrail. There's a chemical tanker truck that just pulled over. I'm getting closer to it. There's a semi-tanker truck that's coming at me right now. No, stay over here, truck driver. Stay over here. Stay over here. Oh my gosh, I can't get over here in traffic. Yes, yes, sir. Confirmation. Human body. Oh my gosh. Do you want to check to see if this person is still alive or breathing? Sir, there's parts of him. I can't. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, poor Brian. And he's got his son.
He's got his son with him that he left back in the car and he's out, just being a good Samaritan. The call goes on. I can summarize it. He does confirm that there is a body in the road. He starts asking the dispatch operator if he should stop traffic. He says, I think this is a crime scene. He goes on to describe the injuries of the body in the road, which were quite graphic. We'll get into those in a few minutes. And he stays on the phone until the sheriff department gets there and is able to take over the scene. His big concern was he's like, I think this is clearly a crime scene. It's a crime scene. Traffic is coming. Should I stop traffic? Like he really wanted to help out so the scene could be handled as well as it could be.
Honestly, the first thing that's kind of coming to mind, well, the first thing is this is horrendous. But the second thing is there are a lot of people. Like there's a lot of traffic for this time of the morning. Was this a really busy, well-traveled road?
What I know for sure, it's a busy highway.
Okay.
And we know there's a lot of semi traffic just from the witness statements alone. There is a content creator named Gavin Fish. I actually referred to him as a major source for me when I covered the Ellen Greenberg case. Well, Gavin Fish also covered this case. And one of the things that he does is he gets the police reports, he gets police statements, he gets autopsy reports, he gets like the whole file. And it's available to his Patreon members, which I became because he has such amazing information. So I was reading through copious amounts of police reports, statements, all of that. And one of the things I saw over and over again was semi truck. So I do think this was a heavily traveled road, or at least section of the highway.
Okay, so this is a place where we would expect to have witnesses to whatever happened.
Yes, and just the fact that the second call came in, and while he's on the phone, he's saying, oh, I see other cars are already stopping.
Exactly.
So, yes, there were people stopping to try to help out. Like I said, there were 3 911 calls that came in. That third call came in at 3:52, so just 11 minutes after the first one. Now, fortunately for this caller, they thought someone had just hit a deer. So they were calling to report, hey, I think a deer just got hit. And they just kept on driving. So thank goodness for them. They didn't see what actually
Right.
happened.
Right.
So that first 911 call came in at 3:41 a.m. We need to remember that time because it was just 9 minutes later at around 3:50 p.m. Toby called Kristen because Toby got to the meeting place where she was supposed to be picking up her sister, and Jaleayah wasn't there, and Toby couldn't reach her on her cell phone. So Kristen tried giving rudimentary directions to where they'd left Jaleayah, and the girls hung up. But just a few minutes later, Toby called Kristen back because she still wasn't able to find Jaleayah or her car. But this time, while she was on the phone with Kristen, Toby noticed a large group of police cars and an obvious disturbance in the middle of the road. And the last thing Kristen heard Toby say was, oh my God, before the call was disconnected. On I-77 at mile marker 181, Toby and her friend came upon a horrific accident scene. There were police and first responders everywhere, and when the girls pulled over and asked what was going on, they were told that a woman's body had been found on the highway. Police gave Toby a description of the victim, an African-American female with a white pea coat. And Toby immediately knew it was her sister. Toby called her mother, Kim, who arrived on the scene shortly after, and there it was confirmed the woman whose body had been found in the road was their Jaleayah.
Oh.
The fact that Toby came upon this scene, and then as I'm about to tell you what she actually saw when she got there, that to me it's unimaginable. Like I don't even have words for how awful it is that Toby and Kim actually saw what I'm about to describe to you. Jaleayah was found nude from the waist up. Her shoes were off. She had been decapitated. Her right breast had been removed. Her leg was broken. Blood and brain matter covered the roadway. Jaleayah's hat was found on the other side of the guardrail about 14 feet away from where her body had been found.
What on earth is happening over there?
Right? Jaleayah's car was found a quarter of a mile past where her body was found with her keys still in the ignition. The car was running and still in gear. The doors were locked and the overhead light in the cab was on. There was no blood inside of Jaleah's car, but copious amounts covered the outside of it, specifically on the outside roof and the top of the trunk.
Did she fly out of the sunroof? What's going on?
I will break down what investigators say in just a few minutes. There was blood and brain matter and body parts covering the roadway and the guardrails. Now, Jaleah's body was found in terrible shape, but her vehicle appeared to be far less damaged. Now, to be clear, the vehicle was totaled. It was a total loss. But the visible damage to the car just didn't seem to match the extreme injuries to Jaleah's body.
Yeah, she's basically disintegrated. You would expect the same from the car.
You would. But I find it interesting. Most of the damage to the vehicle was on the passenger side of the car. So, for instance, there was a spot on the passenger side windshield that had been hit and cracked, and then the cracks spider webbed out on the windshield. So it looked like someone had been sitting in the passenger seat of the car, and it would make total sense that, especially if they weren't wearing a seatbelt, they could have just flown forward and hit the windshield and broken it. But the driver's side airbag was deployed. The passenger side was not, leading investigators to believe no one was sitting in the passenger side of the vehicle during the accident. But that's where this broken windshield was. In fact, there were items sitting in the passenger seat, which that in and of itself is strange, because you would think during this type of collision, anything in the passenger seat would have flown onto the floor. I mean, if I even slam on my brakes, even remotely, anything in my passenger seat just goes flying.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's a crash on the windshield, you would think that would have been something that had flown out from the seat and hit, the windshield.
Right. Now, I told you Jaleayah was found nude from the waist up. Her bra, t-shirt, and white pea coat were found hanging on the guardrail, but in that order. So when you take your clothes off, you would take your coat off first, then your shirt, then your bra, right? That's the order if you just took them off and laid them down. These items were laying in the order they were worn. So the bra was on the bottom, then the shirt, then the coat on top, as if they'd just been ripped off her body the way she was wearing them.
And when you say laying, you mean draped over or caught on? And were they all in a stack or were they in a row?
Okay, so here's where things get really hairy. Let me tell you what I saw in photographs, and then you'll have to decide what you think happened. So the clothing has been a large source of debate. And for me, the clothing is really the weird thing about this case. The clothing is a thing I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. So there are some sources that will say that this clothing was neatly folded and just laid on the guardrail. So folded and laid there. Now, I saw a photograph from the scene where the clothing was hanging on the guardrail. So it was hanging, but it was still in that order that I described. Bra on the bottom, then the shirt, then the coat.
Draped over it.
Draped over it.
Yeah, okay, got it.
But there are reports that it was folded and laid there.
Okay.
I have never seen a photo of the clothing folded and laid there. But I have heard that there were photos of the clothing taken in that manner. And the story that kind of follows that is allegedly at one point when the scene was being photographed for evidence, the clothing was bagged before a photograph was taken of it. And then when the mistake was made, when the mistake was realized, the clothing was placed back on the guardrail, but folded. And a photo was taken of it.
Yeah, no, you goobers. If you miss the photo opportunity, you can't recreate it. That's the whole point. You need to capture it before you touch it.
Well, and here's the thing. I don't even know if that really happened because I've never seen a photo of the clothing folded. I've seen a photo of the clothing draped, which to me, in and of itself, just the clothing being draped in the order that it was draped in, all in a pile, that's weird enough. So I don't
absolutely.
know. And it wasn't even draped messily. It was draped, if you go to your OBGYN and you take your clothes off and you just hang it over the chair. Like that.
Right.
It wasn't like
Right.
haphazard. So that's strange enough. So I don't know what happened here. But the fact that there are reports that the clothing was folded and laid on the guardrail obviously raises a lot of big question marks, because if that's the case, if her clothing really had been found that way, that doesn't happen in an accident. That doesn't happen in a car accident. That would indicate somebody put her clothing there. Either she did or someone else did. And then the big question would be why, when, how. It would indicate something else happened.
Right. Even if you were trying to say this was an accident and maybe one of these various people that had stopped to help tried to gather some of her things, how were those things off of her to begin with?
Right. And we will go into that a little further when we talk about what authorities say happened here. But for me, it's the clothing is the big question mark. In my mind, if we knew exactly what happened with the clothing, it would answer a lot of big questions for me. Because, like I said, even not folded, for them just to be hanging the way they would be on a body, that's so bizarre. No one at the scene has ever admitted to picking these clothes up and placing them there in that manner, because that was a question for me. Like you said, maybe someone at the scene, maybe just a civilian at the scene, saw her clothing laying on the ground, didn't know what to do, and they just picked it up and piled it. But nobody has ever admitted to doing that. Personally, I can see somebody doing that in the moment and not even realizing they did it, because here they're seeing this horrible scenario unfold in front of them and they don't even really know what they're doing. For me, that's probably the most likely thing that could have happened to explain why the clothes were found the way they were. But it's a big question mark.
Yeah, I can see that.
The Ohio medical examiner ruled Jaleayah's death as accidental, with alcohol as a contributing factor. Jaleayah's blood alcohol was 0.19, but the testing showed she'd been at 0.24 earlier that night. So highly intoxicated. So here's what the police say happened that night. Here's what the police believe happened. Police say that because Jaleayah's dome light in her vehicle was on, so the interior cabin light, Jaleayah was most likely looking for something while she was driving. And in doing so, they believe she lost control of her vehicle, causing the passenger side of the car to hit the guardrails. Police say the vehicle continued moving forward while being dragged along these guardrails. And Jaleayah was not wearing a seatbelt. So, due to the impact, police believe she was thrown into the windshield on the passenger side of the vehicle, which would explain the damage to the passenger side windshield. She was then thrown against the passenger side door, breaking the passenger side window. At this point, the top half of her body was ejected through the broken window, but only half of her was out of the vehicle. So she's kind of just leaning over the open, broken window, causing her upper body to be hit over and over again by these guardrails. It was this that caused her to be decapitated. Police believe it was this that pulled her clothing off and lacerated and removed her right breast. So it was just being hit over and over again by these guardrails that caused all of that damage. Authorities believe Jaleayah was then thrown completely out of the vehicle, up onto the roof of the car, then down onto the trunk, and finally off of the back of the vehicle, landing in the road. Later, a semi would report seeing something in the road and attempting to avoid it, but being unable to do so. Jaleayah's body was run over by this semi.
Oh, you weren't kidding. This is horrific. I hear what you're saying. Somehow the mechanics don't quite make sense to me. Slammed into one side of the car, but then the other side of the car, but then somehow went out the side of the car up to the roof of the car. It still seems like a bit of a stretch for me. So I don't know. I think I might have to hear more. And then the way her clothes were removed, they would be kind of scattered in a line. They wouldn't be all in the same section, right?
That's what I would think. So I will tell you, the mechanics of this crash are what lead a lot of people to question whether this could have been what actually happened. And I will tell you, Jaleayah's family right off the bat did not accept this ruling, that this was the result of, just a a drunk driving accident. The brutal injuries, her clothing being found in such an unusual manner, the damage to only the passenger side of the car, and the fact that Jaleayah had been so upset when she last spoke with Tabi led them to believe there was much more to her death than just a tragic accident. They believe she was murdered with her own vehicle being used as the murder weapon. Kim argues that Jaleayah had asked Tabi to come pick her up and therefore she wasn't planning on driving. She says, why would she have been on the road if she knew Tabi was on her way? Kim doesn't believe that Jaleayah was inside the car at the time of the accident. And part of the reason why she believes that is because, again, there was no blood. There was no evidence of injury inside the vehicle. All of that was outside the vehicle. Kim doesn't believe that Jaleayah was inside the car at the time of the accident, but instead she was outside of the vehicle when she was intentionally struck. And further investigation would reveal there was no blood, skin, or clothing on the broken windshield where Jaleayah allegedly hit. There was no dent on the roof or the trunk of the car where her body allegedly landed. All of the evidence of injury was outside and on the outside of the vehicle. And remember, Kim and Tabi had driven to the accident scene the night Jaleayah died. They both said that the dome light in Jaleayah's car was not on. And again, remember, the police say it was that dome light being on that indicated Jaleayah was probably looking for something. That's probably what caused her to lose control. Kim and Tabi say, no, that dome light was not on. Now, I would argue that if you really were driving intoxicated, you wouldn't need the distraction. Like, you're probably not driving in a safe manner. So regardless of whether or not she was looking for something or not, she could have still gotten in a crash if she's driving so heavily intoxicated. But it's just another factor where the Davis family is questioning what authorities are telling them happened.
Sure, it is one of those small things. Whether or not it contributed to the crash, it's just a fact that doesn't line up, which makes you automatically question other, quote, facts,
Right.
other observations, if you will.
Now, the Davis family was given Jaleayah's belongings very soon after the accident because, again, it was ruled accidental. But one thing that was not returned to them was a very special keychain. Now, this keychain was a crystal studded J, the letter J, and it was given to Jaleayah by Tabi, and it was very important to her. And apparently, she just never took it off. It was very special to her, but it was missing from her things. Later, Kim would learn that Kristen had possession of the keychain. And Kristen would say that Jaleayah had given it to her that night. And this made no sense to the Davis family at all. And Kim became even more suspicious of Kristen and her friends when Kristen immediately lawyered up. So the question was, if you didn't do anything wrong, why do you feel the need to get an attorney? Why not just tell
Do
police what happened that night?
do we know if Kristen was at the site of the crash that night?
According to Kristen and Tabi's statements, after Tabi called her a couple times and was like, hey, where's Jaleayah? And then they got disconnected, Kristen kept texting Tabi saying, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? She would call Tabi. Tabi obviously didn't answer. She's learning what happened to her sister and dealing with all of that. So Tabi never answers. It wasn't until the next morning that Kristen learned what actually happened and that Jaleayah had been killed that night. So according to Kristen, no, she had not been at the crash scene. Now, if you believe that Kristen was responsible for what happened to Jaleayah, well, then she would have been there, but before the police or anybody else was.
Okay, so it's not like it could be explained where Kristen may have gotten it as a keepsake of her friend or something like that, like after the accident. She's
Sure.
saying for sure Jaleayah gave it to her before the accident.
Yeah, her whole story is that Jaleayah gave this to me as a gift. Now, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. First of all, it was sentimental to Jaleayah from her sister. It's the letter J. I don't know why Kristen would be interested in that. If it was a token after the loss of Jaleayah, that would make more sense. I lost my friend and here's her special keychain. Yes, I see where that would
Well,
make
that's kind
sense.
of what I was thinking. I don't know, was it actually on her keys? Maybe it was hanging in the car. Maybe she found it on the side of the road. Maybe, you know what I'm saying? Like, she was
Sure.
just like, I just want to keep this to remember my friend. That's one thing. But again, I don't know what the interest would be in it before, especially knowing that Jaleayah and Kristen were fighting.
Right. Now, wondered if it went back to the wristlet because I assume the wristlet would have contained the keys. Maybe the keys may have even been attached to the wristlet. So at some point during that possible altercation over the wristlet, did the keychain become separated? You know, Tabi did hear Jaleayah saying to someone, "Give me back my keys."
Yeah.
So was it separated at that point? But Kristen's story is Jaleayah gave it to me as a gift. Here is something that makes that whole story even more weird to me. This was a special item to Tabi. Tabi had gifted it to Jaleayah, but even after discovering that Kristen had it, Kristen didn't return it for several months. Knowing it was important to Tabi and her family, she still held on to it, which that didn't sit well to me. You know,
Yeah, that's
it's not like
icky.
you gave it to her. You didn't give it to her. Her sister gave it to her. Give it back to her sister.
Yeah, that's icky. I would definitely have given it back, even if it was a gift. Even if all that is true, you just don't. You give it back.
Of course. Whatever I can do to help bring the family some peace during this time, that's what I'll do. So, like you said,
Yeah.
even if it was a gift, even if my friend gave this to me on the night she died, like her sister wants it back, it's important to her sister. Here you go.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. 100.
Now, many people in Marietta agree with Kim's assessment that Jaleayah did not die as the result of a drunk driving accident, at least not an accident where she was driving. The strange details of the accident didn't seem to add up to many people. And there's a large group of the community who believe Jaleayah was murdered by her so called friends that evening. Now, police say this is impossible. They say Freddie, Katie, and Kristen all had alibis. There is video surveillance from the McDonald's that captures Freddie's car going through the drive-thru at 3:27 a.m. In this video, you can see Freddie, and you can see he has two passengers in the vehicle, but you can't make out who they are. Freddie's car exited the McDonald's drive-thru at 3:33 a.m., and the McDonald's is 6 miles away from the crash site. The first 911 call came in at 3:41. If we're suggesting that her friends, I'm assuming, left Jaleayah at her vehicle at some point, went to McDonald's, and then afterwards went back and met up with Jaleayah somewhere, killed her, and then left the scene before the first 911 call was placed, that's a tight timeline.
Yeah, I just don't know how it would be possible for that to happen, for somebody else to be driving the car. But then why did Jaleayah decide to drive the car when Tabi was on the way? Like, that's strange too.
So the big question for me, it goes back to when Jaleayah initially said, "Hey, come pick me up. Here's where I'm at." And then called Tabi back just a couple minutes later and said, "No, pick me up here instead." To me, that indicates that Jaleayah probably planned to drive to the new location. Now, I don't know if she never made it there. I don't know if she made it there and then she forgot that her sister was on her way. Tabi got to that location, Jaleayah wasn't there. But the fact to me that the pickup location moved, to me, indicates Jaleayah had plans to drive to that location.
And but then why have Tabi come at all?
Well, good question. I mean, that I don't know. I don't know. Now, given the alibis that the friends have, Kim still isn't convinced of their innocence. Apparently, Kristen, Katie, and Freddie were all children or grandchildren of past or current police officers. So she and many other people think that perhaps their alibis weren't really looked into, or maybe even the case wasn't investigated as thoroughly as it should be. If there was anything those three were trying to hide, it perhaps could have been glossed over because of their relationship with law enforcement. As this case garnered more attention, the numbers of those in the Jaleayah was obviously murdered camp grew. Google Jaleayah Davis, you will find countless rabbit holes and murder theories and cover-up theories, but the accidental death ruling stuck. But then, in 2012, a woman named Ember Stafford came forward to police with an eyewitness account of what she saw the night of Jaleayah's death. She said she met Jaleayah at a bar earlier that night and witnessed a confrontation between her and two black males and a white female in the parking lot of the bar. Ember said that when Jaleayah pulled out of the parking lot, the vehicle with the 3 people inside followed her and ran Jaleayah's vehicle off the road. The last thing Ember saw was Jaleayah getting out of her vehicle. Now, Ember was polygraphed on the details of her statement, and she failed. Ember then admitted that she lied. She made the entire story up, and she was punished with a $500 fine and 6 months in jail.
What was her motivation? Did she have something against Kristen as well?
I don't know. I really don't know. Because her story, her lie lines up completely with the Davis family thinks may have happened. So
Well,
I
I
feel
was
so
going to
bad for the
say,
Davis family.
oh, I know, because they're like, this is it. We've known it all along. Because I was really feeling that story. Because I went, okay, well, that makes a lot more sense. Dang. Dang.
Really bad. And I will tell you, to this day, there's only been one person charged with any crime in relation to Jaleayah's death, and it's Ember for making up the story. She's the only person who's been charged with any crime.
Wow. Wow.
So, though this was definitely a setback for the Davis family, who kept pushing for more answers to the questions they had about that evening, their efforts did pay off. Authorities ended up spending 16 months investigating Jaleayah's death. And as a result of the investigation, they brought in accident reconstruction experts. A Kia engineer was brought in to look at Jaleayah's car. So all vehicles have a black box of sorts that records their movements. The black box on Jaleayah's car was reviewed, and the Kia engineer found that the passenger airbag should have gone off in this crash, but it had malfunctioned. Now, why does this matter? Well, the fact that the airbag didn't deploy helped authorities come to the conclusion that there had been no one in the passenger seat. But if it should have gone off and didn't, could that mean someone may have been sitting there? And of course, I think the idea is, okay, are her friends driving her car and hitting her, and then they get out of her car and run away, leave the scene? Now, I will say this was a pretty bad crash. The car was pretty badly damaged. Again, not to the extent Jaleayah's body was, but nobody had any injuries that were reported. So if someone was driving this car and used it to hit Jaleayah, it was a pretty severe accident that they apparently would have walked away from completely unharmed.
And the fact that there was traffic on this road. This isn't like a road that you wouldn't see anybody for an hour. Somebody would have likely seen a driver get out of the car or another person at the scene, and no one has ever reported seeing anything, correct?
Correct. And if you think about it, within maybe a 10-minute span, 3 911 calls came in, several people pulled over. So this is a busy road.
Exactly. Exactly. I don't, somebody jumps out of the car and hides in the bushes. It just seems unlikely. But also, her having an accident with the state of intoxication she was in. Yeah, I could see her having an accident. But having an accident that plays out like this is, it's a reach. It's a stretch.
It is. It is. Like you mentioned earlier, the mechanics of how she was ejected from the vehicle, her injuries, some of the evidence and the way it was found, it's hard to believe. It's hard for me to believe. The Kia engineer who investigated the case also indicated that the car should have unlocked when the driver's side airbag deployed. That's just a safety feature. But remember, the doors on the vehicle were found locked, once again, causing some people to think perhaps there was someone inside the vehicle who locked the car behind them as they left. Kim Davis is still searching for answers, and she runs the Facebook page Justice for Jaleayah Davis. There's a lot of information on that page. There's videos. There's a video where Kim and her father, who has since passed on, but Kim and her father went out to the scene, and her father, who went to the accident scene the night Jaleayah died, walked through like, okay, here's where this was. Here's the post that had blood on it. Here's where this was found, and really breaks down why they think this couldn't have been an accident. So there's a ton of information just on that page alone if you want to do your own deep dive into this case.
Was it ever revealed, or did you ever read how fast the car was going? Because I feel like this had to be a very high rate of speed, and I'm assuming you could get that from a black box. I'm not sure if they made that public knowledge, though.
I cannot say with any certainty. I also assumed it was a high rate of speed because, again, even after Jaleayah was allegedly ejected from the vehicle, the car continued going for a quarter of a mile. Now, there are some reports that while it continued traveling, it successfully maneuvered a couple of curves in the road. I couldn't necessarily find that as fact because it wasn't like it was perfectly in the road. It was found on the side of the road. I wonder if that is true, if the fact that it was up against the guardrails, like maybe it was like following the path of the guardrails and the guardrails kind of helped keep it on a track of sorts.
Right, right, right.
Um, so I assume it was a pretty high rate of speed. The fact that it was a highway, the fact that she was probably intoxicated, the injuries, the aftermath, all of that, I would assume
And
pretty
all
fast.
this happened on the passenger side car or passenger side of the car, right? She was pulled out
Right.
of the window on the passenger side. Yeah.
Yep, yep. So that's pretty much the facts. The case is still ruled an accident, but there's still a lot of people who disagree with that ruling and say it's simply not possible. I have questions. I mean, I lean into the assumption this was probably just a terrible, terrible, freaky accident. But like you, I have questions about the mechanics. I do wonder why there's no blood inside the car, but lots of it outside. There's just questions. I will tell you that Freddie and Kristen and Katie, they have been the target to a lot of accusations and such from the people who do think that they had something to do with Jaleah's death. Freddie especially is not handling this in a way that I agree with. He's made some posts on his social media. In one post he wrote, quote, "My cat gets hit by a car. It wasn't an accident. I want justice. I blame my pet fish. He was the last one that seen her. Now that damn fish is telling stories, but I know the truth and there's no statue is what he wrote, of limitations. I'm just glad this town can come together when it really matters. Let's all gang up on my pet fish and slander his name around."
Ew. Get off
Yeah.
of it, Freddie. Get
Lis
lost.
Listen, I here's the thing. If you had nothing to do with her death and people are accusing you of it, I get it. I understand why that would be hurtful and why you'd be defensive and why you'd be upset, but keep your mouth shut. You're gonna say that? I mean, this girl died that night. This girl died. Have a little, I don't know, have a little class. So, things like that, I think if you're one of the people who thinks that maybe her friends had something to do with it, that kind of an attitude doesn't help because it's a sense of carelessness. And for me, I think that's really what makes this case have so many questions. There are some questions about the accident itself, but just the injuries, how terrible those injuries were. And then the fact that, like, the people who were with her just act like they don't care. When you put it all together, it just makes you wonder, is there more to this story?
And there was never any idea that somehow she got out of the car. Like the car hit the guardrail. She got out of the car, maybe locking the door on the way out, and then got hit by another vehicle.
So
I mean, I guess that
the
wouldn't explain like the blood on the top of the car and the trunk.
so the series of events that I described to you is what the accident reconstructionist, that's what authorities say happened, with her being half out of the car and then thrown on top and then sliding down the back. That's what they say happened. That's the official ruling.
Just seems like a bit of a stretch. I don't know. But I don't get the feeling that her friends were involved either.
I think for the Davis family, they just really struggle with, like you said, the mechanics of the accident. So for them, if you don't believe that she was inside the car, if you don't believe that's a possibility, well, then that means she had to have been outside of the car when she was hit, which means someone else was driving. For me, I think that's the big catalyst to all of this for the Davis family is they don't think she could have been inside the car and sustained the injuries she did. So she had to have been outside, which means somebody hit her. Who hit her is, I think, where they're coming from. And the fact that everybody was intoxicated, everybody was drinking. If you did hit and kill somebody, your friend, while you're intoxicated, I can see why you would want to hide that.
but that person would have had to have been driving her car, and yet they've come out completely uninjured. That doesn't make any sense.
Exactly, and they would have had to have somebody come pick them up really quickly so they can get away from the scene before everybody else gets on it, and then you have to have friends that aren't gonna crack, which I don't care how much I love somebody, like, if I know that somebody did something like this, I don't know that I'm gonna be able to go to the police and lie for you.
To me, as wild as it is, I think if you believe this wasn't an accident, I think it would almost had to have been a secret third person, like someone that saw her standing on the side of the road and said, "Get in the car," and drove her somewhere. Is that likely? No. But it seems more likely than one of her friends doing it, considering their alibi, which I understand people are questioning because of their status. But again, such a quick timeline. I just don't see how that makes sense.
I'm with you. I actually think, what if she was outside of her car? What if she was outside of her car, obviously vulnerable? Some scary bad guy came up and saw her and offered to drive her home. And then,
Right.
they were responsible for the accident, whether it was intentional or on purpose. Maybe they crashed and it wasn't on purpose. And maybe she was in the passenger seat the whole time. And that explains why all of the damage was done to the passenger side of the car. It still doesn't explain why all of the things were on the passenger side seat, but again, I question whether that could have happened regardless.
But if she was sitting in the seat, maybe her body blocked those things from flying off the seat. Or even if you believe the police theory where she like got pushed over onto the driver's side, did that inhibit things flying off the seat? Did they ricochet off her body or something? I don't know. It does seem unusual though.
Yeah, it's weird. I feel like the most likely answer is that she was driving and it was just a very strange set of circumstances. Like freaky. Freaky is just the word that comes to my mind when I think about it. Just like that's freaky. A freaky weird thing. But I do see why people question it. There's enough questions that make me say it just doesn't all line up. And I can certainly understand why a grieving family would question it. I absolutely understand why a grieving family would question it.
Oh, I completely see that because, again, it doesn't make sense. Like, can you kind of weave it together? Yeah, but very loosely. So I would want more answers too. I understand. I understand where they're coming from. Absolutely.
Me too.
All right, well, let's bring it around with the branch of hope. This month, we are proudly supporting Exodus Road. Exodus Road has the mission of a world where no human is bought, sold, or exploited. They partner with law enforcement to find and free trafficked people, train and educate officers and everyday citizens to protect their communities, and empower survivors with restorative care on their journey into freedom. They are boots on the ground. We said that I think every episode because they're the ones actually going into the trenches, trying to find where these trafficked children, women are being housed and free them and reintegrate them into society. So they are like walking angels on earth, and we are so, so pleased to partner with them. If you are a Patreon member, know that a portion of your subscription is going to Exodus Road this month. If you would like to donate additional funds, you can do so through the Exodus Road website at exodusroad.com. And also, we want to invite you to share with us if you know of a nonprofit that would be an excellent pairing for an episode. Please let us know. We have supported scholarships. We've supported battered women's shelters. We have supported wildlife services. We have supported animal welfare services. We really are open. As long as they are a reputable nonprofit organization, we're happy to support them. And again, a portion of all of our earnings through our Patreon and sponsors will go directly to them. So you're helping to support your community, and we're all working together to do good things. I am just so pleased that I was introduced to Exodus Road, and I'm so grateful for the work that they're doing.
Me too. Very, very excited to be a part of this collaboration this month. What an
Yeah.
amazing organization.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Be sure to come back next week where I will cover the Galapagos affair. Ever since I watched the documentary, I cannot stop thinking about this. It's about explorers, adventurers, and also an unsolved murder. So definitely have to come back for that.
Sounds good. All right, Shiver Seekers. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.
This episode of The Dark Oak was created, researched, written, recorded, hosted, edited, published, and marketed by Cynthia and Stephanie of Just Us Gals Productions, and made possible by you, our shiver-seeking listener. Special thanks goes to Justice Himes for our incredible artwork and Ryan Crete for our amazing music.